So, recording in progress.
Mm.
So we're kind of discussing about, weren't we, is so asking for help and how people are, in some cases, there's that sense of dissatisfaction, but there's not enough to shift them on from that point in life. So it could be career, it could be relationship.
Yeah, I think that point where putting up with it is easier than doing something to change it, or it feels like it is.
Yeah.
But you're in that place where I think it's risky to stay too long, because you get to a point where what you're sitting in is apathy.
Well, I'd say it's also an acceptance of this is the best I've got, this is the best I can do.
Well, is that the same as apathy?
I don't think they're two different things. Apathy is like, can be asked, can be bothered. And it's like there's that painful acceptance, isn't it, of I think this is best my life can be.
Well, I'm wondering if apathy goes even beyond that, where apathy becomes the point of not caring whether there's better or not. You're just at that point, you're just blank to it. Because you just keep doing what you've always done.
Well, yeah, because that's the easier option, isn't it, I guess. I wouldn't say blind to it. I'd say it's just ignored and off to one side somewhere.
No, not blind, as blank.
Oh, blank to it, yeah.
Blank, yeah. It's like you've gone beyond the point of caring about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's almost like you've put a lot of effort into it. You've not necessarily got what you wanted.
Yeah, it's, as I say, it's a kind of acceptance. That's the best it can be.
Or is it a lack of energy to change it?
Well, some would say it takes just as much energy to be in that situation rather than actually change it.
I'm not sure that I agree with that, though. Not if it's got to the apathy stage.
Maybe.
You're at a point of such low energy to change it, you don't even recognise that there's no energy to change it. You're just going through the motions.
It's like
It's that stage. Yeah. Whereas accepting it, that actually makes me quite sad. It's like there's a loss of hope.
I think there is for some people. They may have asked for help. They may have gone for help somewhere, and people just can't be asked helping you, or the advice wasn't correct, or the help wasn't the right sort of help. They just gone, well, nobody's out there to give me that hand up.
Or is there a fear that that's all that is ever going to be? So therefore, if I don't look for something more, I maybe don't find out that that's all there is.
Yeah, well, that's what I was kind of saying with that acceptance. It's like this is the best my situation is going to be. Yeah. I can't change it.
I think we've all been there.
And in some cases, I think still there in some ways.
Yeah.
I know there's some areas of my life gone, kind of can't be asked for that.
Well, I know there's been periods of my life where I've stayed in relationships that probably weren't great for me because it got to the apathy stage where you just didn't have is energy the right word?
Well, yeah, it could well be.
Yeah. Or...
Well, I guess you've got to have that energy to actually do something about it. Just a lack of energy then is like, there's no will there, is there, in a way?
I think sometimes that's also about not being able to see beyond where you are. That is part of apathy. So because it's almost kind of like where the alternative is too far away from where you are for it to appear realistic or achievable with the energy resources that you have at that point in time. So you stay where you are.
It's that stuckness.
Stuckness. But that's where we end up stuck in jobs that feel more like drudgery than they do about...
Inspiring.
Well, I'm always wary about that, about using that word with jobs. Because people have different views on jobs.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Not everybody can be where would we be if everybody was saying airline pilot? There'd be nobody there to clean up the rubbish or do the plumbing or
Well,
mend the car or
I
do
don't
the
even
nursing.
think it's so much that, Rich, because what inspires one person is unique. Each person is unique to them. I think that's probably more about where and what purpose we give work.
Well, yeah, and maybe also as well is a lot of work is top-down directed without consideration for the actual people doing. And people going, what's the point of this job? I can't do what I'm supposed to be doing because you're limiting what I'm doing.
Sometimes, but I think there's also an active choice which says, do you know what? This suits what I want from my life perfectly because I don't have to put a huge amount of time and investment.
Oh, yeah.
But it gives me the income I need to invest in the areas that are important to me. And therefore, there's a trade-off there.
Yeah.
But for other people, that motivation for work has to be about the work as well. It can't be separated. So, for instance, even if that was funding something in my life that I really wanted to do, if my work wasn't something that I enjoyed, I wouldn't be able to do it. I couldn't sustain it.
Yeah.
Because I can't separate the motivation for the two. But others can.
That's what we talk about. Burnout and bored out, isn't it?
Yeah. But that apathy piece, or if you choose to use the phrase acceptance, where we're not looking beyond or seeing an achievable route through, or maybe we've invested so much energy in this, it's almost...
It's, what do they call it?
The drip feed. Right, you know how...
yeah, but there's another term, isn't there? I can't remember what it is. So where people invest in, say, in the stock market, and they've seen it shoot up, and go, oh, we're happy days, I'm going to keep blah, 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 doing that. And then it comes to a point and it crashes and they'll go, oh, I still, because there's that emotional thinking behind, oh, this will come up at some point, but it just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping, and they'd be better off selling somewhere in that drop because that stock's just going to go down and down and down. Yeah. They've got so much emotional investment in there, they think at some point it's going to have a return rather than go, I need to cut my losses and go.
Yeah. Or the metaphor I was thinking of is almost like water regress, where I've had experiences of properties where literally the ceiling has fallen in.
Oh, yeah.
Because of a leak. Oh, that was a bit of a shock. God almighty bang too. But there's also situations where it's been that slow drip feed where you don't realise it until there's major structural damage.
Yeah.
Because it's been so gradual that it hasn't been noticeable until it gets to the point where the structure can't sustain it any longer. And I think sometimes apathy is that slow feed.
Yeah. Yeah, because it comes at one point that, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, but the ceiling fell and I had to act quickly. Yeah. But that slow feed, it's almost kind of like you can ignore it because it's just this.
Yeah, and that just minimises as well, doesn't it?
It does minimise, and it also doesn't account for the cumulative impact of it because you're just looking at things in isolation.
Yeah. I know it's not actually strictly true because frogs don't, they say, oh, you put a frog in cold water and turn the water up. So then
that's a modern legend, isn't it? A modern myth.
Yeah. But it's that old story, isn't it? If you put a frog in there, just turn that heat up and the frog won't notice.
So it's too late and it's cooked.
Boiled.
But the reason we started having this conversation is about there being the potential for more.
But
and sometimes...
is more always good though?
Well, if I go back to my drip feed metaphor...
No.
Right? Yeah. I'm going to go back to whether you want me to or not. Right. So at that point, you have a choice. You either put a bucket under the drip and keep it and let the drip continue, or you go looking for the source of the drip and fix the source.
Mm.
Now,
Yeah.
you can put the bucket under it, and eventually there will be long-term damage to the structure of the house because it was a property, right? Or if you go hunting for the source, it might take a little bit of effort in the short term, but the integrity of the house is safeguarded then.
But how many buckets will you need to keep that drip going?
How many times will you empty the bucket and have to put it back there? But sometimes, because that's maybe only once a week you're emptying the bucket, you don't realise. You don't really pay attention to it. It becomes a routine task. But that also applies to our relationships, to our work environment, to our social lives, to whether we have a social life or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's the difference between, are we putting up with the drip feed, or are we going to go looking for the source? Because the effort doesn't have to be massively more for you to get a much better outcome. It just has to be a bit of effort.
Yeah. So that consistency is key, isn't it? The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And they say, well, why don't you water the grass on the side of the fence that you're on?
Yeah. Because if I'm looking at the tools that you and I use every day, that we work together, how we... obviously we never have disagreements, Rich. We never have disagreements.
Of course not,
no. We never get into drama where we're like, I disagree with you. Never, that never happens.
Yes. And obviously our communication is always on point. I'm just walking back from the airport.
Well,
I'm just walking to the airport.
That's another short, isn't it? You have to admit that did amuse you, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look out for that short, guys. That's a bit context.
Yeah.
But the difference is that you and I sort things out really quickly. Really quickly.
Yeah, it may take a couple of days, but it does get resolved. We'll give each other that grace of space. Yeah,
but even that couple of days, sometimes if we're sorting things out, that's an agreed couple of days. Yeah. It's not because we're ignoring it. It's because we're going, right, we need to have a think about that.
So that's like consent.
Yeah, there's an active consent and an active acknowledgement in it. And I'm just wondering how many other people would benefit from that too.
Yeah. And we've also picked up quite a recently amazing skill, haven't we?
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah.
Teaching kids how to spell or read.
Read, write and spell.
In 6 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really cool. So we're thinking about running a couple of open sessions, aren't we, on like the problem solving skills, like the communication skills, the contracting piece.
Yeah, you might have to explain contracting.
Well, contracting is the agreements we put into our relationships that help remove ambiguity, confusion, and help make sure that everybody's very clear in terms of what's going on. That's part and parcel of when, for instance, if you and I have had a disagreement over something, we'll go, actually, I'm not sure how I want to approach it yet. Can you give me 24 hours?
Yeah.
So there's a contract in place that says, yeah, we're time binding this. We're not ignoring it. We are going to resolve this, but we're giving each other space to process what's going on here and pick consciously the words we want to use to express that. So, yeah, look out for that coming soon.
Yeah.
And if that's something that you would like to move from that point of apathy to that point where your structures around about you, whether that's your relationships, your work, wherever, your social life, are a lot more stable and aren't at risk of that drip feed, the things that you're just putting up with because it seems like it's easier and you can't be bothered with the hassle of it, so you're just emptying the bucket once a week, once a month, whatever. Yeah, look out. Coming soon to the space near you.
That's right. Yes. we look forward to seeing you there.
Mm-hmm.